Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hypnovision Media. I am your host, Nicholas. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to all the new subscribers out there, especially the people that stopped by and left a comment. You are greatly appreciated. This past year has been a journey for me, and it really does give me the strength and courage to continue speaking out and sharing some different perspectives and understandings. It's really been a blessing, and it's really helped me to step out and to a bigger unknown, which is very exciting, to be honest. So today I want to talk about emotions and energy in motion, but not just that. I'm kind of piggybacking off of the last video with the law of vibration and cymatics, because quite honestly, our emotions can be relatable in this regard. First and foremost, I want to say that everything comes from our imagination. And one of the weirdest things I experienced earlier this year, I spent most of the year alone. And if you are going through an awakening, perhaps maybe in the YouTube algorithms, you might have seen stuff about why chosen ones have to be alone. I'm not so sure about the chosen part, but what I will say is cymatics helped me to understand this, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the story of the Tower of Babel, because our imaginations are really strong, and if you get to looking into the soul progression, there's a lot of ancient teachings that suggest that the first 7 years of our life, and there's actually scientific evidence pointing to this, the first 7 years of our lives, we are in a theta brain state, which is highly suggestible. So you can kind of really quickly understand how at such early ages we are implanted with ideas, subliminal messaging, and all sorts of things that not only do these images get impressed on us, but there is also an emotional aspect to it. So attention within the imagination is like planting seeds. And when we give emotional energy to these seeds, they start to grow. And it's really one of these complex things, and I'm trying to give my firsthand testimony of how I've come to understand a lot of different things with emotions, with the imagination itself, and like mental alchemy and finding inner peace and bliss within myself. So I like to call the imagination the story of stories, because it really is. Every human being has tried to explain the image in their mind. So to me, that validates any argument against that everyone is God within. Everyone is connected. Everyone is part of creation. And we are all having different perspectives and trying to explain and define the image within our imagination. So there is a lot of times now in the last year, I've come to a greater place of acceptance, and that has in return reflected back a lot of inner peace in my life, because we get a lot of things drilled in our heads, and sometimes we accept things as truth, and maybe it's not so much truth, and we become really defensive. We can be really resistant. And when you think in the terms of energy and you think in the terms of resistance, that's kind of like sucking a milkshake through a straw, and it's just like just came out on the counter. Like it is still super cold. You can't get the milkshake to come up the straw. So there's a resistance factor to this also. But the mental process of imagination to me really took its own journey and rabbit hole, because they wanted to learn how to use their imagination, and that in itself was never a question that was ever posed to me. Like, how do I explain imagination? So that in itself was one of those, it sent me down a rabbit hole, and I literally felt like I was trying to find the curtain and pull the curtain up so I could find what was on the other side. I really became to understand the internal dialogue versus the external dialogue and the story and characters that are inside of our imagination. And one of the things that helped prove this to me was the fact that you can close your mouth and you can literally hear words when you think it. So if I thought imagination with my mouth closed, I can still hear the word imagination. So if I ask a question to myself, who am I? And then I answer myself, who wants to know? Then of course the imagination has either answered itself or created the illusion that you received an answer. So that in itself, to me, I found to be very interesting. And then I started thinking about the external voice, that which we speak outwardly. And to me, that's piggybacking off of some of my last videos about cymatics and speech and speak it to existence, speak power over your life. But there's also a sense of gaining alignment with your inner and outer voice. So that has looped back in my own experience with emotions, because without emotion, we have no self-esteem. We have no energy because it is not in motion, right? So if you feel like you are in a slump, right? You may not have motivation because your emotional energy is down. Likewise, you have something good happen in your life and it makes you really happy. You might be doing extra chores around the house, or you might be going that one step above here and there because your emotions are running high. And so now you have a higher self-esteem. And if you think about the way locomotives work in boilers, they heat the water till it expands and it creates pressure. And you have to release the pressure. And therefore, energy in motion is energy in motion. I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. So I think about how all this stuff ties in together. And, you know, certainly sound has a very, very huge impact on our emotions because it is a vibration. And we know sound creates vibration. So there is a sense of harmony that goes within vibration, but what if there's distortion? Any kind of distortion would disturb a ripple on a pond. So if you were throwing a rock in a pond and creating a perfect circle, but at the same time somebody throws a rock right behind yours, now these waves are overlapping and the original wave is no longer authentic and original. It is distorted by the interlapping or clashing of the waves. And that energy has to redirect and change itself. So it is always vibrating and in motion. And that's how I come to start to understand the different emotional channels, like a radio channel where we can tune in and or filter out different emotions. And it's been a very, I don't know the words to explain it. I don't know if any of you guys out there have ever experienced going through these different awakenings, you know, like clair audio, different things like that. But it certainly was one of those things where it just helped me stay secluded. Which brings me to the other thing I meant to say a while ago. When you see things where it says, chosen ones, you have to be alone, what that boils down to, in my interpretation, is the simple fact that you have to stop talking long enough to listen. You have to sit down and be still and know. So if we are constantly externalizing our attention outwardly and our emotions are drained, then we become irritable. We become easily angered. We become short-tempered. and we lash out, we speak out, we are emitting this energy outwardly that is actually negative. And our first person perspective, because our attention is externalized, we are not seeing how we are presenting ourselves or appearing in those times. And I found that to be a really enlightening perception of how this reality really works. The parts of the reality that we don't pay attention to, that we don't see, that we don't really think about, which is when you turn the attention inward and you ask yourself questions and you put yourself under a microscope and you start that inward journey into the imagination. And which brings me to the other thing. The imagination is so powerful that anything that we literally give emotional energy to will manifest. So if it's a person that goes back and forth between positive and negative, but it's polarizing, hard swings positive, hard swings, it's almost like having a split personality. And honestly and truly, when you break everything down, you can start to see how this stuff simplifies, really, because it's polar opposite, right? Positive and negative. But if you want to balance it out, you need something neutral in the center to help balance it. And that brings me to one other thing, which I have to give context to this from my personal perspective and my personal background, growing up under the overall Christianity concept of the devil and God or Jesus. So when it comes specifically to the devil, I don't believe in it, and I'll tell you why. Because what you focus on grows. And if you plant seeds in your imagination and you are in fear of the quote-unquote devil that you've never seen, then you are given emotional energy to a character in your imagination. You are allowing yourself to give emotional energy in the form of fear, in the form of anger, in the form of lashing out. So when you focus on this, even though sometimes it's unintentional, not knowing, and that is because your attention is outwardly focused. And that's why grounding, you have to almost change and start a routine where you are able to sit down and do it on a regular basis and make sure that you're not out of balance. You're not too far out there and you're not too far in there. Because when you go down and listen to stuff like the Neville Goddard teachings, everyone is you pushed out. Well, if your attention is outwardly extroverted, like all the time, then those characters in your mind, you are projecting all of it outward. So you're getting back different reflections of yourself and different characters that you have created within your imagination being reflected back to you. And that was really mind-blowing and really explains why people go through these long periods of solitude, because unraveling the imagination is really a complex, deep self-journey inward. And to be honest, it's amazing. It's a blessing. There's so much knowledge within every individual human being that is on this planet. We have it within inside of us inherently. It's God-given. It's part of creation. And all we have to do is turn our attention inward and get to know ourselves, to know that self. And with that, I'm going to kind of slide into alchemy and how that affects our emotions, because we are chemical makeup in the body, in the flesh. So our minds and our emotions create the image and the feeling, which sends the signal to our bodies. So if we think of a situation that makes us nervous, makes us feel anxious, then we manifest anxiety inside of our body. Our body responds to the command to manifest the symptom of anxiety. Likewise, if we are able to go into meditation, hold our attention onto something positive. Let's just say the happiest thought that you can think of. And you can hold that in your attention, in focus, for just a few minutes. And you start to feel a change, a physical change within your body. Now your mind is sending the signal to your body to manifest the feelings of gratitude, the feelings of happiness. So you are like a mental pharmacist for your body. And that is the other thing about being able to sit still and know thyself. Because we have never really been learned, or we have never really been taught how to really listen to our bodies. Because quite honestly, most of us that are alive now fit in some kind of system where medical care is externalized, and there's all kinds of structures and red tape and all kinds of stuff that really makes us give away our health to some outside entity. And we give away our security to government, and we give away our knowledge to school systems to teach us that which we already inherently have within us. So emotions are energy in motion, and alchemy is the attunement for the expression outwardly. So if we can imagine the rainbow as different emotions, and that's like a channel that you can tap in and tap out of, you can start to understand how artists and musicians and painters can really focus in on an image in their mind, and they catch a feeling. It's like a wind in their sails, and that gives them the emotional energy to put it in motion and to take action physically to create and express that outwardly. It's simply amazing. Those internal characters that we create in our mind almost at times can be hidden from us. It's like something in the shadow. And if you've ever been on a spiritual journey, then you know the term shadow work. And this brings me up to a conversation that I had with my daughter just last night. She's 13 and she's becoming a young woman. So obviously her emotions are a little bit all over the place right now. What is the darkest place that one can think of? And simply the answer to that is, when you close your eyes, it's your imagination. So we are inherently scared of the dark because we know not what's in our imagination. And that's the whole concept of light versus dark. And they externalize this through teachings of the devil and Jesus, light and dark, this never-ending battle of light and darkness. But if you can turn your attention inward, and you know that your external surroundings are a safe place, then you can learn to, through breath work and through meditation, release the tension that is in your body. And that will help you to go into the imagination without carrying those emotional channels with us, those fearful thoughts, those anxious thoughts. I know because years ago, it was hard for me to sit still. I could barely write a paragraph when I was trying to come up with ideas. The whole thought of ADHD, attention deficit, well, that's because your emotions are like a ping pong ball and they're bouncing all over the place. And the whole concept of a pendulum, it's just really, you need to allow for realignment. So that kind of goes hand in hand with harmony and disharmony, or discord in sound. Distortion creates a bad vibe, a bad vibration. So that definitely would throw a pendulum off if it were swinging, because that creates like an oscillating effect. You can think of anything in the imagination and come up with an answer. The key to it is learning how to describe the image or tell a vision. And that's where that name came from, right? The TV, tell a vision. So every human being on this planet is trying to tell what the image is in their mind. What were you thinking? Well, I don't know what I was thinking. I was going off of what I was imagining. And we do this all day long, and we become unaware sometimes that we are almost in autopilot. We are just going through the motions because there's certain parts of us that it's just easy to be like on autopilot. We get into these routines of the 40-hour work week. We get into the routines of school, and it starts to become a habit. And we are kind of asleep at the wheel at times when we're not paying attention to the right thing. So when it comes to the conversation that I had with my daughter, I pointed out one thing to her, and it was almost like you could see the light bulb go off in her mind. And, the whole concept of what you focus on grows. You can reverse that. So if there's a thought or a fear in your mind, take away the focus, like zoom out, and you'll find that these things over time, you will see less and less. This is like the whole effect of you buy a brand new car, and then all of a sudden you notice that same car, like, oh wow, like I didn't realize there were so many of these cars already on the road, but it's just something that you just got, and it's like in your awareness, it is something that you have paid a lot of attention to, and you are noticing it more. So that really has a lot to do with attention. And when we start to learn to move from intention instead of attention-based, your life will change. It did for me, because when I changed and started moving from intention, so many things in my life suddenly were not important anymore. And you hear a lot of people say that, chosen ones can't work a 40-hour work week. Well, I do understand that, because you see past this illusion of you have to have this 40-hour work week, and you have to have this health care, and you have to have all these securities and all these material things to be happy. And there's so many people that are on the inside that are sad, broken. They don't understand why things are the way they are. And quite honestly, it has to do with the fact that our attention has been externalized, marketed, and sold. So there are advertising companies, there are marketing companies that's all they do is seek attention. They seek attention, and then they try to sell that attention to you. So I understand that, and knowledge is the true value and the true wealth. And it is the inheritance. It was God-given. It was part of creation. It is inside of us. The DNA holds billions of years of information. And if we are able to take that inward journey and take our magnifying glass and go inside of ourselves and get to know ourselves and listen to what our body is telling us and listen to the emotional channels within us, we can learn to release and let go of things. There's a video I did last year when it was around the time I was going through my awakening, and it was about emotions. And I had a download that I was trying to explain. I was trying to tell what it was that I saw in my mind, television. So here I am almost a year later, and I think about it now. I was imagining how cords are connected and knots or inside of our emotions, and how a cord being pulled on creates tension. And if there's a knot rubbing across another cord, now you're creating a spot that causes discomfort. So if emotions are somewhat elastic in the terms of ebb and flow, we're not always happy and we're not always sad. Ideally, we would like to be somewhere in the middle, but more towards the happy side of life. Then you certainly understand the pendulum effect of life, that there is ups and downs, highs and lows, and swings in our emotions. But the mental aspect of things, how we mentally think about ourselves, our self-image from our imagination, is so important. How do we imagine ourself in our reality? And we stop thinking about how others see us, and we start thinking about, through intention, how we imagine ourselves. It is a total transformation. It is totally life-changing. And I think some people at times will go through these manifestation steps, and it almost seems so surreal to them that it's like a person making a New Year's resolution to go to the gym and it only lasted 2 weeks, and it's uncomfortable to realize that, yes, I just really manifested a different state of being within myself. And now I'm noticing different things externally, and sometimes people withdraw. So everyone is you pushed out, and then you pull everyone back in and go in solitude. That's really like how you break that down. And I just think sharing this stuff and just having personal testimonies, because I'm not trying to prove that I'm absolutely right in every single thing that I say. I'm just sharing a perspective and how I've come to understand different things internally and how I see the relation externally from my point of view. And I think that is one of the most wonderful things about life. When you really sit down and you start to get to know people and understand people, and you see the different aspects of their lives and how it relates, how everything is connected, you start to have a greater appreciation for life. And when you put some intention into yourself and you start to realize that you are worthy, that you are just as amazing as the creation outside, but you are just as amazing inside. Your self-worth and your self-appreciation, it will grow. As above, so below, as within, as so without. You know, that I've said that saying so many times, but it is true. You look at a tree, there's just as much under the ground as there is above the ground. The root system has to support the top side. So the inward journey into what is in our imagination is like going into the soul. And I found it very helpful to just reimagine. And you probably heard that with Disney before, but there is some truth to it, because you can reimagine yourself. And it's not saying that your past didn't happen, but we are able to start separating and filtering out different emotional pains, different emotional traumas. If we can filter out that emotional distortion, then we can start to reimagine a clean, clear picture. So we can tell a new vision. We can recreate the story of stories in our mind. And this time, we can imagine it lovingly, compassionately. We can imagine all the wonderful things in life. And the more we focus on those wonderful things in life, the more we will see those on the outside. And that is how you get to the internal state of bliss. And there's a lot of topics that I want to come up and talk about in some upcoming videos. I get really excited talking about this kind of stuff. And honestly, I feel like this is more of a life purpose than it is going to collect a check just to put a roof over my head. So this, to me, has purpose. Even if I'm just rambling, it's amazing stuff to me, really. So I hope you guys enjoy, and always do your own research. If there's anything that you find interesting that I say, please do not take it as face value. It is only my perspective and me sharing a testimony from a bunch of tests in life. So I will see you guys down the road soon.